Okay, welcome. Good evening, everybody. My name
Good
is
evening.
Ricky, and I am a training coordinator at De9mics Consults, rather. And today we have here Jennifer Igbeta, and she is uh a wonderful friend of our community. She's part of our community, and she is an Azure DevOps engineer. Correct me if I am wrong.
No, you're still in track.
Okay. And she's going to be teaching us Azure Storage Accounts. She's also a Microsoft certified trainer. Yeah, I'm very sure of that one. Okay, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. You have the
Thank
floor
you.
now.
Thank you so very much, Ricky. It's actually a pleasure, being part of this community and having the opportunity to give back to society. I do not take it for granted. So I would like to say thank you to De9mics Consults. Thank you, Ricky, for managing everything. And yes, thank you to everyone that's here presently. So nothing so far from the truth of what she said. I'm actually a DevOps engineer with Approvia. I wear a lot of hats, different different roles. So sometimes I play support, sometimes I play DevOps to different organizations and all of that. So, but the reason why I'm here is to, talk about something that is very huge, and I'll tell you why I feel it's actually huge and why it's a must for everybody. So let me do this. Hold on. Let me just quickly share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so very much. The order of today is actually to share with you guys about Azure Storage Accounts, what, why, and how. I feel it's actually necessary for us to understand this concept, most especially if we are planning on, embarking on tech or the cloud journey in tech. It's actually a plus for you. So, without much ado, let's just get into it. So first and foremost, what is Azure Storage Account? Um, Before I jump into Azure Storage Accounts, because Azure Storage Account is actually built upon a platform, and that platform is actually called a cloud service, which is Azure. So I just want to understand if everybody here in the room understand what Azure is all about, if we've ever heard of it before, or cloud in general. Just one person. Okay, so I take it that, okay, someone wants to say
Yes, we
something?
have.
Okay, Ahmed, okay, thank you very much. So, likes of Ahmed, I've actually heard about cloud, but for those who actually haven't heard about cloud, I'd like to just give a very brief definition before we embark into the, Azure Storage Account proper. And why am I doing so is because the storage account is built upon something. So if we don't understand the foundation, it will be very difficult for us to understand where we're headed. All right, so the cloud is not really cloud as it is called. It's more metaphoric, and it's just simply means not on my computer. If this is the only thing you can take on today, and alongside with the storage account thing that I'm going to say, please, I want you to note it. It simply means not on my computer. So there's no biggie about it. It's not rocket science. It's not complicated. It just means whatever it is that you're not doing it on your computer. So for instance, De9mics could have series of computers and they will be like, oh, Jennifer, I understand that you always build applications, but you always have issues, hosting the application on your system because your system doesn't really have what it takes to scale and, some other features. So why don't you come host your application on our own system? right? So that's just a clear concept of the cloud. So Microsoft, as well as other cloud service providers like AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, GCP, Oracle, IBM, and likes, they're just saying to we, the end users, please do not host on your computer when you do not have the infrastructure. To get these infrastructures are quite expensive. Why don't you host on our infrastructure that's actually prepared, to give you the standard of service that you actually want, which simplifies, importing infrastructure, getting someone to set it up, getting someone to manage it, getting someone to, check on it, getting someone to actually build a cooling system. It just saves us a lot of, that stress. So simply put, cloud means not on my computer. All right. So let's now delve into Azure Storage Account. So Azure Storage Account is actually a Microsoft cloud storage solution for modern Azure storage platform. So basically, what it means is this, that Microsoft has actually put together, a solution, more like a cloud solution that helps people from industries as well as individuals to, resolve their storage issues. Sorry, I think I made a mistake in this typing, and that's what just confused me. I think I was rushing, so I just put it down. Pardon me for that. So what I was actually trying to say is that the Azure Storage Platform is Microsoft Cloud Storage solution for modern platforms. So like I said, not on your own storage. What is a storage? Anything that can contain something. So I'm saying it is not on your own storage, but it is on Microsoft storage. So I want you to note this part of it. Sorry. I want you to note this part of it that says Azure Storage Data Objects are accessible from anywhere in the world over HTTP or HTTPS via REST API. Now, what this means is that you can actually access it via the browser. Simply put, forget all this big grammar that is said by Microsoft and all of that. It's just access, via the browser, either with a secured connection or no secured connection. The secured connection is the one that has a padlock, and non-secured is the one that doesn't have a padlock. And it actually can be accessed via REST API. Well, that's out of the scope of this course today. Let's just focus on the browser stuff. So now, remember before we got started, I actually mentioned something about why this is very important. So I want us to move on to the next slide. A career path. You see, this might just be a 1-hour webinar, but the impact of this 1-hour webinar will take you places. That is if you're really interested. Now, learning about Azure Cloud Storage is just more like an embedded, career path in the bigger structure, which is Azure Infrastructure Engineer. So Azure Infrastructure Engineer plays like an umbrella under Azure Storage courses. Now, you can actually be an Azure Storage expert, under the infrastructure umbrella. Now, the reason why we are actually saying this is because look at what we have on the board. Azure Infrastructure Engineer salary is just way up there. See, if you go to some countries, you have, some other courses or other career path paying like 30,000, 40, most especially if you're in the support role. But if you can level from support into becoming an infrastructure engineer, where you can, design, implement solutions for big organization, you could earn something within this range, which is not a bad idea for me. Let me break it down. Now, in Berkeley, Daly City, and Richmond, you can actually see the breakdown as well as other states in the United States. Why do I pick United States? Is because they are quite community friendly in the sense that they can hire from any community in the world, right? So that's why I actually use them as an example for this career path breakdown. Now, the average annual salary is between 120 to 150K every year. If you break that into monthly, you can see that you'll be earning $13,000 per month. If you break down into weekly, you'll be earning 3,000, and your hourly range could be within, this hourly range. Why am I actually stating this? I'm stating it to arouse your interest. I'm stating it to tell you that it is what it is. It is what it is. A lot of people are there already. I mean, guys in Nigeria, they are doing great things, just learning, with their computer, seated one way and attending webinars, from webinars to another webinars, and they are where they are today. So I'm really, really happy and grateful for that opportunity that the United States has given to, the entire community of the world. Because honestly, I know for a fact that United States, they are open to anybody. They can hire from wherever, even if you're in Ijebu, regardless of wherever your village is, they can hire you. Just what they need is your technical expertise, and you can grow it by attending webinars like this. So this is just to spark up our interest even as we continue in the webinar. Okay, so let's talk about Azure storage types. Actually, they are called data services, because when you create an Azure storage account, you don't just have a storage account. You have types, of storage accounts depending on what you want to achieve. So as we can see, we actually have Azure Blobs, Azure Files, Azure Elasticsearch. I'll explain them when I'm done. Azure Queues, Azure Tables, and Azure Managed Disk. Now, if you're familiar with the Azure environment, you would know these things. But if you are not familiar, I will, be your guest in breaking this thing down. So Azure Blobs are just Azure storage accounts that can help you store unstructured data. Now, forget all this big grammar that is written here. It's just for formalities. Unstructured data simply means movies, files, let me use the colloquial word, jaga jaga, anything that does not have structure. You can just carry and dump into this storage type. And that's why it's called a blob storage, right? Now you can scale in and you can scale out, okay? So that's just one of the offerings of Azure accounts. Then we also have Azure Files. Now, Azure Files are actually popularly known as Azure File Shares. And that's because they're actually used by, majorly big industries to mount their drives for, on-premise deployments and any other thing that they would want to do. It also can help you with your unstructured data. I'm so sorry, I forgot to put the picture of this thing so you would have an understanding, but during the practical, you would understand what I'm talking about. So you can actually mount it like your Drive C. Yes, I think that will give a very clear picture of what I'm trying to say. The way your C drive looks like if you click on this PC. So this is what this looks like, right? Azure File Share. It's more like an SMB type of thing. So people mount it on their network, and every other person that have access to it can actually, pull information from it. It could be videos, it could be file, any form of unstructured data. And that is why you can use Azure Files or Azure File Share. Okay, remember, we are in the journey of becoming Azure infrastructure engineers. So we have to take details of what I'm saying, because it's very important in your journey. I don't care if you, even though you came here casually. I'm just trying to let you know where you are and what you are into. So the next one is Azure Elasticsearch. Now this, I'm not going to talk about it because it's still in preview. It's just a managed system, right? It's not being used. I'm not even supposed to put it here, but I just wanted to put it here so we know that there is something like this coming up soon. It's a managed service that is actually, you can see it here, a fully integrated solution that simplifies deploying, scaling, managing, and configuring of a SAN in Azure. Like I said, this is just totally out of the scope, but just know that this service is about to be preferred by Azure. So it's still in preview. So Azure Queues, yes, I would really love to talk about this Azure Queues because a lot of confusion all around it. So many people, they know that there's Azure Queue, but they don't even know what it is. They don't even know what it is actually used for. but I can actually tell you, right? So Azure Queue is part of the data services offered by Azure, and what it does is simple. It helps, people who are into programming, people who are into development, trying to develop systems or applications or whatsoever sort within that light. It helps them for decoupling in the sense that it manages them into little or small microcosms. What I mean is that it decouples or it separates this system instead of having the monolithic approach, like everything will be in one, and if anything goes wrong, the entire application goes wrong. Azure Queues help manage requests, by breaking it down. For instance, let me give you a very good picture. If you have an application and you have a database, right? And all of a sudden your users, they become bigger than the audience you used to have before. The request. People will start searching. That is what request means. People can visit your website. They open about, another person is open pay in, another person is open something else, another person. Those are actually called requests, right? So if the amount of persons you have within your application just massively increase, like for instance the Black Friday event that is coming, these Azure queues will really save a lot for them, in the sense that the request from different people all around the world will become massively much, and you cannot really scale up your database. That's the problem. You can't just all of a sudden, you are scaling up your database, most especially when you're not using database as a service in Azure. It's going to be pretty difficult, and it's not really a very good design. So what you really need to do is to put a queue. A queue is just a series of messages stacked. I'm really sorry, I forgot to. I'm so sorry, really. I was supposed to put the diagrams of all these things, but I think I was just rushing because I had a lot to do at work. So it's just a stack of messages. Instead of you having everybody bombard you, okay, I think that's a very good image. Instead of having everybody in this, for instance, in today's class, talking to me at once, it's called a blitz or bombardment. Everybody talking to me at once. It could be too much for me. I may not even understand. I am the database and you are the request. So what I do is this: I put you people like in a pipe, so it will not be scattered for me, right? I'll be taking your requests one after the other, so I can handle whatever it is that you are telling me at my own frequency. I am the database, so the database will be able to accommodate the request based on, the frequency of the request, and the queue makes it easier for it to, balance the frequency. So that's just a literal explanation of what Azure Queues is all about. I'm really hammering on this because people don't really talk about queues. They just say decoupling, and they use a lot of huge grammar or vocabulary that can throw you off balance. But I just want to believe that with this explanation of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you about Azure Queues. Right? We will definitely take questions at the end of the day. Okay, let's talk about Azure Tables. Now, Azure Tables are actually used for structured data. Remember, I mentioned that Azure Blobs and Azure Files could accommodate unstructured data like your movies, your files, your document, anything you just want to dump, you just dump it. You have an application, you dump it, everything. Like, what I mean by application, I don't mean you're hosting the application there. I mean like you have the exe file, you can dump it, right? All those are very unstructured. But for structured, I believe some of us will understand this because we know SQL. It means that everything is organized in columns, in tables. We have name column, we have surname column, we have this column. Everything is properly organized. So that's what these Azure tables actually used for. Now you can see it says no SQL. This is very confusing for a lot of people. And I'm so sorry, but a lot of people don't really break this thing down enough for people to really understand, especially people that are trying to, embark into a tech journey. No SQL simply means not only SQL, right? I'm not going to really go deep into it because it's way out of this class, but that's just what it means. It doesn't mean that there is no SQL. It means that it's not just SQL, right? There are other formalities, sorry, there are other formats involved, not just your SQL. Okay, so let's talk about the last one called Azure Managed Disk. Now, Azure Managed Disk actually means your block level storage volumes. Now, what this means is that your operating system, let me use that as an example. On Azure, right, it's a managed service. Your OS, operating system, like for instance, Windows 7 or Windows Server or Windows whatever, or even Linux, whatever it is, Mac OS, your operating system is not just dumped into a virtual machine or into a system on Azure. It's actually on a managed drive. It's being managed by Azure, and that is one of the best thing Azure actually did. Don't worry, maybe anytime we talk about virtual machines, I'll be able to break this thing down and you'd understand why it is actually one of the best decisions Azure made, because formerly it was your operating systems were actually dumped into a storage account. But now they said instead of dumping it into a storage account, which makes it very complex, why don't we just create something, a different data service called Azure Managed Disk, where it is all in one compact, right? But like I said, it's out of this course. So let's just move forward. So the storage tier. So we have different level of storage tiers. While dealing with Azure Storage Accounts, we have what we call the hot storage tier, the cool storage tier, and the archive. Now, just like the name seem, sorry, just like the names means, right? I don't know, maybe because I'm Russian or something. Just like the name means, right? It's hot storage tier, in the sense that it is ideal for objects that are accessed frequently. You know, there's a popular saying in Nigeria that says, as it dey hot or hotty hotty. That is exactly what this storage tier means. It means it is really hotting, in the sense that every time, every day, there is read-write operations going in and out. People are accessing it, people are deleting, people are imputing, they are doing a lot of things on this storage account. So that's what it means. And of course, as the name implies, it's quite expensive. The cool storage tier is a little bit opposite. It means that it's actually optimized for infrequently used or accessed data, in the sense that the read-write operations, or when people are trying to access it, is not as much, right? So it's more like, oh, okay, after every 3 days, I check what is going on, or after every 2 days, okay, I check, I delete, I put. It's not really that frequent, so it's actually not as expensive as the hot storage tier. As a storage expert, it is very important, imperative that you understand these, you know, this part of it, as well as the previous data services I explained. So I want you to just try and concentrate. So archive storage tier actually means that you're not going to access it for a long time. You know, that's why they said it's rarely used, which makes it very, very useful for backup, and it is less expensive. It's the least expensive, as you can see, of the offering, right? So whenever you're creating a storage account, or during our practicals, you see what I'm trying to say. So that is what it is. If you understand the storage tier, you understand the data services, you would know how to design and implement a solution for a client. All right, so let's move to the performance tier. This is also as important as the other ones. We have the hot storage, we have the cool storage. Okay, so yes, sorry, I think, oh, there was a mistake here. Let me just put what is supposed to be here. So performance tier, pardon me for this. Performance tier is actually standard and premium. Right? What does this mean? It means that whenever you're creating a storage account, you either create a standard storage account or a premium storage account. Now, a standard storage account is, just for standard stuff. I just want to create a storage for my logs. I want to spool in, monitoring logs, or I want to do something that does not really require a lot of input and output. That's IOPS. That's a total different topic altogether. But simply put, it doesn't really require too much, activities. So you can go ahead to use a standard account. a standard storage account, then a premium storage account is actually the most expensive. And that's where you have your SSD and all of that. And it's actually very fast compared to the storage accounts, as in retrieving information and everything is very, very fast. I do not want to say at the speed of light. It might be like I'm over exaggerating, but you get you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, so just ignore this. It's actually a standard and premium. Okay, let's move on. Yes, now this is is something we are about rounding off. So I just want you to pay attention. Now, I actually did not put in a lot because if I should put in, this slide would definitely not contain what this is. So this means data redundancy or replication types. Excuse me. On Azure or on any storage design, it mustn't be Azure. There is always what you call data redundancy. For those who do not understand the concept, data redundancy simply means that you are making replicas or copies of those data, right? In order to prevent loss or data loss. So Azure gives us different types of data. It's your money that will actually guarantee if this is one of the replication types you would want. We have the LRS, we have the ZRS, we have the GRS, and we have the RAGRS. I didn't want to use Azure's definition because Azure's definition is just too much of huge vocabularies and might confuse us. So I think I will just use a simple definition I got somewhere. So the LRS actually means local redundant storage, right? So it means that you are locally storing or making a copy of your data. Now you created a storage account and you have your company's information inside that storage account. Now remember when I was defining what cloud is, I said cloud means not on your system or not on my system, but on another person's system. Now, Microsoft has what you call a data center. Now, this is where all these infrastructures are put together for the use of their customers or their clients. Now, LRS means that in one data center, in one region, I am making 3 copies of, my data, right? Okay, let me just do something. Sorry. Let me so that we can see what I mean. I got a very good definition. Yes, so that we would really understand it properly. So like I said, it means that in one data center, in one region, you have 3 copies of your documents or of your company's documents stored in that data center. That's why you have into 3 disks, right? So you just replicated it in 3. But guess what? What happens when that data center is down? That's where the problem is. Your entire file goes down. And Azure will not be blamed. You cannot sue Azure because these are their offerings. They're telling you that this is what they can offer, right? If a stack in that data center goes down, you still have 2 more. But if the entire data center goes down, it is gone. And there's nothing you can do. Like I said, you cannot sue Azure because they already told you. So the next one is the ZRS. ZRS actually means zone redundant storage. And what it means is that you're making a replication. Now, not just on one data center, right? But you're making it on different availability zones. Now, this grammar, let me just tell you what this grammar means. This grammar means data center. Anywhere you see Azure availability zone, it means Azure data center so that you don't get confused because they like a lot of big vocabularies. Okay, so this availability zone just means Azure data center in one primary region. Now remember, the first one means that in one data center, you actually have 3 copies in one region. But now you have spread those copies not just in one data center, but in different data centers. It could be 3 data centers, but in one region. For instance, it could be in Africa, like the latest region they created in South Africa, the data center, right? So it could just be in Africa, one region, but different data centers that are in South Africa, meaning that if a stack goes down, your data is safe. If a data center goes down, your data is safe. But the problem is if that region goes down, I'm sorry, your data is gone for good. And you cannot, like I said, you can't blame Azure because they told you what it means. And you said, yes, that's what my money can handle. So if the entire region goes down, is actually gone, right? So this one now is a more, a better design to this. It actually means geo-redundant storage. Geo actually means geographical. Meaning that, so we are not just going to have replicas in a data center or in different data centers in one region, like this one, right? We are now going to have in different data centers in 2 regions. Now, those regions are actually known as the primary and the secondary region, and most of the time they are actually paired. Right? They're actually paired. It could be that one region in South Africa is paired with one region in Europe. They are actually paired, right? So both of them cannot go down. It's not possible. It is not possible at once. It's not possible. So this is a safer design, but it's more expensive, right? Means that your data in a stack inside a data center is safe. Even if that stack goes down, the data center is safe. If that data center goes down, your data is safe. If that data center and another data center goes down, your data is still safe. If that region goes down, your data is still safe because you have in a paired region, that's the secondary region. So that is what these terminologies means. You have the geo-redundant, you have the zone redundant, the local redundant, and there is one more. Yes, sorry, I forgot to tell you this one. This is very important. It's actually called the read access geo-redundant. This is very expensive. I don't know how to overemphasize it, and that's why we have it as read access, meaning that in one geographical location, you would just be given read access, right? Now, why it is a little bit different from this one is that the secondary location is not necessarily a paired region. It could be just a different secondary location on its own, not necessarily a paired region, right? And you do not have access to edits and blah, blah, blah. That's just what this big grammar read access means. It means you can only view. You can just view it. You can't do anything, right? So this is basically used by developers, to create, just like it says, readable endpoints, which is totally out of the scope of this class. So these are the offerings, replication offerings Azure is actually giving to their clients. So as a storage expert, when you want to do your designs, you have to go through all this to know what is the best, for your client. So let me quickly go back to my slides. I don't want to take much time. So we are actually rounding off now. This is the last. Yes, this is the last of the slide, and it says Azure Account Security. Now, this is very important. In fact, everything I've said is even important because I've been saying important. It'd be like everything is very important, right? It's not that much, it's just few slides. So as an Azure storage expert, right, you need to understand how to secure your storage account for your organization. Because if you do not secure it, hackers are on the rampage, like they are on the loose. It's like somebody just removed a leash and you have hackers everywhere. So if you do not, they will actually put a ransomware on your storage account and ask you to pay Bitcoin or pay something that you cannot pay, which is not a guarantee that they will actually give you or release your company storage account. So as a storage engineer or storage expert, you really need to understand how to keep your company's storage safe. And that's where you go with your Azure Storage Account Security. So you can actually enable encryption. Naturally, Azure actually have their data encrypted at rest, meaning if the data is just seated doing nothing, it's actually encrypted. Do you understand? You cannot just go ahead to, I think that's for the managed disk, right? Data at rest is actually encrypted, right? So it has the functionality whereby you go ahead to enable the encryption now for storage accounts. So when you're trying to enable this subscription, it says options such as client-side encryption, server-side encryption, and Azure Vault integration. Now, this big grammar just means that from the client side, you can encrypt it. And from their own server side, it can be encrypted depending on what you want to go in for, right? And it actually uses Azure Key Vault integration. There's what you call Azure Key Vault. Is totally out of this course, but maybe next time when I'm talking about big data and any other thing, we'll talk about this Azure Key Vault. It's just how to protect, your or back up your information or your data. Now use role-based access control. We all know about Arabic. For some people who do not understand Arabic just means a way of limiting, people from accessing whatever it is you have. It could be your storage account, it could be a virtual machine or whatever you have in the cloud or any on-premise site. You need Arabic to be able to control access, right? So you can actually set it up for your storage account using what you call SaaS, your SaaS token, and all of that. We'll see during our practical. Then number 3, set up a firewall. There's what we call private endpoints in storage accounts. We won't be really doing that because is a different thing altogether, but I think I can show you a bit of what it means to set up a firewall, on your storage account. So we actually have monitor access and activity. On your storage account, you have activity logs where you can actually check, what's going on, who did what's happening, blah, blah, blah. It can actually be done. Then to back up your data in a regular basis, when we are creating our data, right, I'll show you what it means. There's what you call a snapshot. So you can have regular snapshots at different times. I feel that is a very good practice because you never can tell. But if you have regular snapshots and something happened to maybe the information of today, you already did a snapshot of yesterday and nothing really has changed. You can just rewind your storage account back to yesterday and it will just bring it everything as it was. That is what it means to have, snapshots and make it backed up. So, and yes, and because of corruption as well, you can actually take it back. So follow best practices, install secure transport protocols, employing strong authentication methods, and all of that is very important. So this is more of, trying to follow the best practices for what you're doing. When you actually become an infrastructure engineer, best practices will be like one of your frequently used words. It will be like a cliche for you because you keep on saying best practices, best practices. You do not want to mess up with your client's environment, so you have to follow the book to the letter. Okay, so that's just that. And rounding up, now we have learned about storage account in a more intermediate level. Right. So how can you apply this information now? You're done with the webinar, you want to go home. Oh yeah, I attended a webinar organized by De9mics Consults, but how do you, because I'm really much about the application of what we get, how do we apply this to our CV? So I made a simple example for as many of us looking for jobs, looking for good jobs. You could actually add this to your CV. I'm well versed in Azure Storage Accounts, having taken relevant training courses and implementing storage solutions in professional context. I have experience in configuring and administering storage accounts such as Blob storage, file storage, and data security, what we just finished talking about. I have experience with both standard and premium performance levels, that's the performance tiers, and I can optimize storage performance while lowering cost. This is very important. You can say optimizing cost. Very, very important. If you can reduce the cost of any organization, you will become like their best staff ever. You'll become almost indispensable. So the same thing here. It said, in addition, I have obtained relevant Microsoft Azure certifications certifications such as Azure Administration Associate and Azure Solutions Expert, while which indicate my knowledge of the platform. So I just put this little thing down so that we can have a picture of what we can add to our cover letter whenever we want to send, our applications to any organization. So I just want to hope that based on what I've said, I've been able to, convince you that you can be an Azure infrastructure engineer, starting by understanding Microsoft, one of their infrastructures, which is their storage account. If you're a storage expert, in fact, just the way Nigerians, we all say, you don't blow be that. If you really understand this concept and if you can design and implement for any organization, trust me, you're the best. Okay, so let me just quickly do a very short practical. It's like I'm out of time. Oh, okay, there's still 15 minutes. Let me just quickly do a short practical. But before the practical, is it possible I entertain any questions? Does anybody have questions or? Okay, so I want to think that we do not have questions. Okay, good. Well,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
means that,
sorry,
okay,
John. Okay, good evening, else. My name is Samuel by name. So,
hi,
apologies,
Samuel.
I joined the meeting late. So, I know the course is about, Azure storage and also, but basically, there's a slide, amongst other slides that talk about, I think no SQL, not only SQL. I just wanted to know if, Azure, take for example, if I'm a Python developer now, or a
Mm-hmm.
PHP developer to start with. So, in my code base, so like when I create, my SQL is a free database engine that
Yeah.
developers can easily access. So if I'm writing, or if I'm trying to create a database schema, I know what to do. I know that, okay, if I'm having a student table, is that also applicable to the Azure platform as well?
When you mean applicable, are you talking about the fact that you do not have to pay for it?
No, I'm not talking about the accessibility or the payment aspect. I'm
Okay.
trying to say, how do I incorporate my database schema information?
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I understand. Like,
how do
is
I
it going to be okay? Continue. Sorry. Sorry for interjecting.
Yeah, so how do I call my database schema into my application, so that when people are probably, if it's something that people has to input the data, how do I store it? Instead of using the MySQL this time, how do I put those information on the Azure storage?
Okay. So, let me show you something. Sorry, I think I opened my portal. So let me just reopen the portal. This is Airtel 5G. I don't know why it's buffering. Okay. So this is an example of a storage account. We'll still just go through creating one. So these are the offerings. So you can actually create a table here, just like your regular MySQL, and you impute your structures, the same thing the way you do with your MySQL. Hi, Sammy, do you understand?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I was saying, because you were talking about how do you impute your schema. So if you create a storage account, you can actually come to data storage and look at it. You have tables. Then you can create your table, build your schema, you know. Then calling it, that's totally different from this Azure Storage Account course, right? That's a different thing altogether. But you building your table on Azure Storage Account is what we're talking about here. And you can actually do it using one of the data service offerings provided by Azure, and you can come here.
Okay, so this is where I need to define my schemas, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So let me just, because of time, let me just quickly show us how I got here. So we went to create a resource. This is our Azure portal, by the way. I chose the dark theme because I do not want lights entering into my eyes. So just in case you see the bright theme, it's just something I chose. It's a preference thing. So Azure Storage Accounts. I don't know why my data is actually a little bit slow. Just pardon me, please. Sorry, it's not this one we actually want. This is what we want. This is more like a service, storage account as a service. This is the storage account we're actually looking at. So we come over here and click on create. So we have our basic information. So this is my subscription. This is my resource group. I just leave it in the default. You can create a new one, but because of time, there is no need for that. We can go to the next tab. Sorry, let me give it a name. Test 4,200. Okay, sorry. Your storage account should only be on small letters, not capital letters. 200 already taken. Okay, so this is the name of our database. We are putting it in this location. Sorry, I said database storage account. Central US. You can change the location if you want. You can see. So remember the performance tier I talked about. This is where you get to choose while designing any solution for your organization. So let's go with the standard, right? It's less expensive and it can be used for this demo. Else you can go with your premium. So let's change this. Geo redundant. Remember we talked about replication types. So this is where you get to choose. This is where you get to choose. So I would want us to go with the simplest one, which is the one that have 3 copies in one data center in one region. So we do this. Let's go to the networking. Now, remember that security part I talked about? Let's just quickly run it here. Now, if you want to use a network security, you can actually do the design here. You don't have to enable it for public access, right? You can just go ahead and disable it. Then you can put your private endpoints by adding your private endpoint here, which is a bigger scope of this. But I just wanted to give you an understanding of what I meant. You can make it non-public, then add in your private endpoints. Your private endpoint, see, all these things are big grammar. What it means is just URL, something that somebody can use to access your storage account that's not in public. It could be a URL, it could be something else that you guys have actually put in design. So you can see these are the schemas for your private endpoint. But like I said, it's a different scope from this 1-hour webinar. So let's just quickly go sharply. So we have what we call soft delete, meaning that if you mistakenly delete a storage account, you can actually get it back if it's still in this window of 7 days. I think we can even increase it. Yes. So we can increase it to 10 days, but the default is actually 7 days. So it's always good to leave it enabled, right? Just in case of any form of mistake. Now, encryption, this is it. This is the normal Microsoft managed keys. It's actually encrypted at rest. I believe so. Yes, it's actually encrypted at rest. But when it's in transit, like when you're doing your read-write operation, that's where the problem comes in. It's not encrypted. Hackers can just hack into your storage account and do whatever they want to do with it. So tags just means you are creating it for so and so department, maybe accounting departments and all of that. So we don't need to do that. Let's just review. Just trying to be very fast. The major thing I actually wanted to show us is how to connect to this storage, but let's just quickly create our storage account. How to use our Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, very important. So Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer is just a very good way of accessing, your storage account or even if you do not have the information like the user ID and password, you can actually just access someone else's storage account whenever they give you an access key. And I'll just quickly show us how to do that. So all these things we are doing now, you might look at it and be like, I beg, is it not just click, 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 blah, blah, blah. But if you understand the concept, you will know that it's bigger than, it's way beyond click, click, click. It's understanding how to manage a company's account, Microsoft storage account, and how to deploy it in such a way that it actually becomes useful to them. So file share is the SMB thing. Let me just quickly create one so that we can see how it looks like if it gets mounted. Or let me just quickly do this. I'm just trying to rush because of time. So let's quickly create a container. We are going to create our blob storage. Blob storage are usually inside a container. So let's just do this. Jenny test, right? And let's just go ahead. Now you see, let me show you what this means. Private means that nobody can access it. And see, I can't change anything. Now let me show you what this means quickly. So we have created our blob. This log is actually a default blob storage. It's used for spooling, monitoring logs, for this storage account. So it's just always there by default, right? So this is the one we created. So let's just go and upload. Okay, sorry. You made a mistake. So let's just go and upload our unstructured data. I'm just going to go ahead to upload a simple test. Where did I put this? Let's test, just a simple test. Sorry, because I actually made that in private, so it's not going to upload. So let's just go ahead and remove that privacy. That is very important. That's if you want people to actually, manipulate your storage account, or if you want to. So you come over here. Yes, Blob anonymous access is disabled, right? So if we enable it, let's just go ahead and enable this and save. So you can see it appears here now. So we can just, there's no file in there, just go ahead and to upload test storage. This request is not authorized to confirm. That was just a mistake because it's just trying to, change the format back to enabled, right? So I want us to take note of that. Storage accounts, our containers, Jenny tests. Why is it doing this? Apologies, guys. It's actually just trying to adjust. We've enabled this. This is enabled. Okay, this is just an old let me just go back to the one I just created. By now you should have adjusted. This is enabled. So let's go to our container. So remember we created a container for our unstructured data. Why is it doing this? Okay, let's go back to the one I created before now. That's a very unusual behavior. You can see this is actually enabled. I don't want to waste our time. This is actually enabled. And if you come down to containers, you can see I created this container today, and you can see I was able to upload that what's happening there is an unusual behavior. I guess the API is still trying to recall and all that. All right, so now how can we access this? For instance, if you're not here, I want you to access the entire files that I've launched into here for my company, right? So we can go ahead to use this. This is actually called Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. So how do we go ahead to do that? Let's go to our account, the storage account itself. Then let's go down to where we have access keys. So all these are where the security thing comes from, right? I'm going to delete it. People are not supposed to see your access keys, but because I know there's really nothing serious in this container, I can show anybody because I'll delete it after this lesson. So the first thing I need to do is I can rotate my keys. All these are just access keys, meaning that I can use these keys to access this container. To give you, for instance, let's say you're in Lagos, I'm in Port Harcourt, I'll just send you these access keys. Please go ahead and access our company's container and check so and so file and blah, 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 right? So this is exactly what you would do. You would download and install Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. Then once you do so, you can connect to your own, right? By signing into it or authenticating into it. You can just go ahead and click on, or you just come here, click on connect. Sorry. Click on connect. Then what are you connecting into? You want to connect to your company storage account. Remember, I'm in Port Harcourt. I created this, right? You are in Lagos and you have to connect to this. So you come to storage account. So how are you connecting to it? You're using connection string. That's the access key. That's what it's called, connection string. So what you do, you go and click on next. So we come over here. So we go ahead and click on the key. Oh, sorry. Copy it. Storage. Right. Let's try and use this key. I don't know why that's not copying, but it should copy because I tested all this before I started this class and it worked perfectly well. But you understand how things work at times. Just when you're about to present something, it starts misbehaving. So you go ahead and put in that as your display name. Then you go ahead and use this as your connection string. Remember, you are in Lagos, I'm in Port Harcourt. I just want to establish that fact so you understand the use of this. So all you need to do is go to next. You see, so it's connected. Look at, remember, this is the name of our storage account. So it has connected. Then all we just need to do is to go ahead and check. Sorry, it should be here. Okay, so you can see that it has automatically connected through our connection string. That's why you see it here. So you can just go now and you are in Lagos and you're viewing our blob storage, what we created earlier. So let's bring it down. You can see the BB store. That's this one. Sorry. That's this blob. Where are you? Sorry. Yeah, that's just what happens whenever you want to present at times. Thank God I created this beforehand, else that API would just mess this entire thing up. So sorry, let's go back to, I just wanted to show us. So this is the account that's been connected to. Then we created a blob. Blobs are usually inside a container. And remember, this is it, the BB store. So this is exactly what is here. And now you in Lagos, you are able to view BB store and you are able to view this, right? So that's just how you can connect wherever you are in the world. your organization storage accounts. Maybe you want to do something, or maybe you are even a developer and you need to connect this to your application, and you also maybe need to spool logs into here. This is just how you go ahead and do this in Azure. So I don't know if I can take one more exercise or if I have passed my time. I think I have overspent my time, 5 minutes. I just wanted to show us how to mount a file share, but I
You
think I
can
will
still
just
go
wait for
ahead.
Ricky. Okay, thank you so much, Ricky. So sorry, guys. Let me just show you. This is actually for your good so that you will understand how it works and you can become a certified Azure infrastructure engineer. All right, so your organization says go ahead and mount a file share on our network drive so that people in the accounting department can actually access it. So what do we need to do? Let's go ahead to use the same storage account. I don't want to waste our time. Look at the data offerings. We have the containers, the blob. We just did that. So we are going to file share now. So what we need to do is to go ahead and click on file share. Let's create, has to be small letters. Oops. D. Okay. So the maximum capacity is actually this. Well, these are easy things that you can read by yourself. So let's just quickly do it. Great. So it passed the validation, meaning that we can create it. Okay, so it just successfully created. So now we want to mount this file share. I'm using my laptop as an example. Let me show you a folder. Now, this is the usual file explorer. You go to this PC and you see this, right? So the file share is going to look like this. It's like you're mounting this. Now, this is my G drive, my Google Photos and all that. So let's mount our file share now. So the next thing we need to do is just to come to connect. We choose our drive letter. We have drive C. We can go with Z. We can go with any letter, but let's just leave it at the default C. A storage account key, show scripts. So you leave this at default, except you're using your R back, which is out of this scope. So you just leave it there. So we copied this. Azure is so nice that they created all this for us. We don't have to stress. So you copy this part. This is a PowerShell script. I'll tell you what it does when we connect. So let's go to PowerShell. So let's just use the PowerShell SE so we can paste it and see it. So we just pasted it. So this is actually going to test the connection that the storage account can be reached on your laptop, or should I say your laptop can actually connect to the storage account. So that's just what it is. This goes ahead to save the drive and it will make it persistent, right? Even after reboot, as you can see. So that is what all these, like I said, jaga jaga things are for. Permit my word, sorry. Okay, so let's just quickly go and do that. I clicked on run, by the way. So credential added, successful. Yay. So we just succeeded in mounting this amount. That's just 5 gig. You can add up to 5 terabytes, right? Which is quite massive. So this is just 5 gig. So let's just try and see if it has been mounted. So you can see this is our file share. So this is how we go ahead to do it. And companies do this to, put in some restrictions on a particular drive and say, okay, this drive should only be accessed by blah, 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 this certain people in this department and this other certain people in another department, right? So you can go ahead and put in your restrictions here. I don't want to go ahead to do that because I'm deleting that. So we can just go ahead and you definitely see the company's network and the list of their users here. So you give, access control. Maybe you want to give full control, modify or anything to this storage. Those are the only people that would definitely have access to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, with these few points of mine, I think I've been able to start your journey into becoming a very rich and prosperous Azure infrastructure engineer. Thank you so very much for your time, and I wish everyone, the best of luck in their job search. You can always add this that I wrote. You can add this. You can go to LinkedIn, put it on your cover letter, go to Indeed, go to different job sites. Indeed and LinkedIn are the ones for me. And I've been able to get jobs, not just one, but jobs from there. So yeah, you can do that for yourself. Thank you very much, Ruki. Thank you very much, everyone, for your audience.
Thank you, Jennifer. This was insightful.
Thank you very much, everyone.